Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I am joined by Lawrence Conley and Ian Conroy. Loads happening this week, guys. We've got Oasis reforming this morning, followed up by the Champions League draw on Thursday, potentially 4 or 5 new signings, and then we've got the first Glasgow derby of the weekend. What a week to be alive, Ian Conroy. You saw the rise of Oasis back in the day. Is it something that still causes ripples for you over there, or are you just thinking, whatever?
Look, I'm glad to see it. I was 17 when Definitely Maybe came out, and it was, I think that kind of like, it was just the right age for the likes of me, you know. So the first 2 albums were cracking, you know, but none more so than Definitely Maybe. I think it sort of captured that youth spirit, you know, right back in the, I think when music needed a kick up the backside. So it's kind of, it's well versed, you know, how the album sort of came about and stuff. After if you've seen the Supersonic documentary especially, but no, I'm glad to see it. Whether I'll get a chance to see any gigs or whether they'll come out this way, may end up having to come back to Europe. I mean, I don't think I'd make a special trip to come back just for the gigs, you know. But if stars collide, I wouldn't be against it.
The reason I mention it, of course, is the very first guest on A Celtic State of Mind was Paul Gallagher, none other than Paul Gallagher. He set us off on this journey, and we continue to this day, and we talk Celtic every single day. Lawrence Conley dialing in from the Skylark. Is it famous or infamous, your bar? What side is it? Famous or infamous? Yet, not yet. There's time.
I did meet somebody in Edinburgh, and I happened to mention they'd been in the Skylark, and he said, "Where is that? I've been looking at Google Maps for it." Mate, it's not like a real bar, you know.
Does it become infamous after the first Glasgow derby? Who knows, Lawrence? Loads to talk about, but I want to stick to, at the moment, the incomings, the outgoings. Obviously, we're in that. We really are in the tickly bit of the transfer window where we need to get our finger out. And obviously, Brendan Rodgers has spoken about it. But let's have a look at the departures. This is just in the last week. Since you guys were last on, we've had some kind of high-profile names or otherwise. We've got Toby Oluwayemi, the backup goalie, has gone to Dunfermline on loan. We have seen the loan transfer last night of Gustav Lagerbielke, who has made his way to 20 Enschede for a season-long loan. And then the permanent transfers of Daniel Kelly to Millwall, Yuki Kobayashi to Portimonense, and of course, Matt O'Reilly completes his 26 million transfer-busting move to Brighton and Hove Albion with another 3 million on top sometime in the future. Ian Conroy, it was inevitable. It was going to happen. We knew that. So now more than ever, there's a few players that need to step up, but also we need to step up in this transfer window and get some bodies in the door as well, don't we?
We do. I thought I'd say all fans. I'm sad to see Matt go. I still think that, I know he's going to Brighton and it was a decent fee, and he's guarded his career really, really well. I still think that another season, or at least half a season, to give him that exposure in the Champions League, I think it would have. I think he backs himself. The team seems to start to purr. It wouldn't have been a bad thing for him to sort of maybe stay a little bit longer and get that exposure and maybe go to a higher echelon of a team. But obviously not to be the case. And it was good to sort of hear Brendan's press conference, you know, and sort of agreeing with, you know, our frustrations, I suppose, or understand, you know, conveying that he understood our frustrations, because a lot of it, we talk a lot about fan engagement, and there's never any from the Celtic board, you know, or Celtic generally. So therefore, you know, it's almost like we're getting that kind of, you know, we're getting stonewalled, and you know yourself, if you're annoyed and angry, you know, you can get someone, you can de-escalate it, you know, just by some, just outlining some basics, you know, having the respect to actually do that, you know, and say, look, we care about you, we understand your frustrations, but here's what's happening. They just stonewall us and we suffer in silence, so that makes you kind of more angry and frustrated.
It does. And even when Brendan's doing it through a press conference, and it does feel as though he was sharing the frustrations. I'm going to go to Liam Carrigan. Good to see you, Liam. Is that Marco Echeverri era Mexico?
1998 Mexico, yes.
Nice. But Echeverri never played for Mexico, did he? Who did he play for? Answers on a postcard. Liam, Matt O'Reilly has left the building. He leaves Celtic with our best wishes. And obviously, he is now with Brighton and Hove Albion. Ian reckons he could have stayed another half a season at least, maybe another season. But the business has been done. Brendan Rodgers spoke about it after the game, before the official announcement. And of course, it's all out there and open now yesterday with the video where Matt is sporting an earring in his left ear. Did you notice that, guys? I did zoom in. Yes. He obviously didn't think it would fly up in Glasgow, Charlie Nicholas style, Liam. And it's a double one for me because you've got some guys at the club who need to step up, but in terms of transfers, we need to step up as well. We're getting to that bit, and I know that you know this, right? We are in the hunt for a number of players who, it gets to the point, Liam, that they get a similar or the same offer from a League One club in France or elsewhere, sometimes even a Championship, and they've actually opted. Yeah. They've opted for that rather than coming to Celtic. I know that there's difficulties in getting some players over the line, but it does look as though there's a few lined up for the last few days of this window.
The unfortunate reality seems to be that a lot of it hinged on us getting what we thought Matt O'Reilly was worth. It's only now that he's out the door that these deals seem to be moving quite rapidly. And I think that's pathetic because the money has been there. There was no need to sell Matt. And look, I wish Matt all the best. If anybody has earned a big money move to England in that Celtic team, it's him. Total professionalism, totally dedicated player, clearly wants to work to improve his game. I think Brighton's a decent enough team. They've started this season pretty well, and he's only going to add to what's already a very good midfield in there. I watch Brighton now and again because they've got Japanese player Mitoma in their team.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting to see them link up. Because I'm curious as to how, because in another parallel dimension, those two could have ended up at Celtic together, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play.
Aye, it is. And by the way, Echeverri never ever played for Mexico because he was Bolivian. But there you go. They did wear a green kit. And try to think what World Cup it was. 94. Anyway, 94. That's right. He got sent off in the first game.
Opening game against Germany, they lost 1-0. I remember watching it.
He got a red card, didn't he? Echeverri was the star man and got a red card. Big shout out to John on the comment section, who commented last night at 7:10 at night and was wondering why his comment wasn't brought up on the live stream. Well, we do, John, stream from 12:30 to 1:30, mate, and there is no favouritism in relation to who comes up, as explained. So there you go, John. Hopefully you can come back in and get involved. But if you do comment post 1:30 Celtic part time, it's impossible. I can't bring your comment up. I can reply to you, though, on the YouTube. Lawrence Conley, what's the chat? Some of the names across the tagline are apparently close to be done. We're in discussions, obviously, with the likes of Valle, Bogusz, Engels and Trusty. Trusty might be part of a Mikey Johnston deal. That could be, really, if Carlsberg did weeks in Celtic, then Mikey Johnston leaving on top of everything else I've mentioned would be pretty good. No disrespect to the player, but we can't get out this window without a few other bodies going. 14 have left the building, Lawrence. 4 have come in. The 4 across the tagline, are we going to get them in this week?
Hopefully, mate. It's worrying the boy for Barcelona. Apparently, there's no option to buy. Have we learnt anything from leaving the Ida deal so late and not getting an option to buy in? Probably not. It's, Liam's touched on it. They've left it far too late. We go to the table to get a player now. People know we're desperate. We need to get guys in. Why we've not went with an option to buy, who knows? It sends Brendan's frustration. They just don't seem to change the way they do business, the board, do they? We'll leave it at the last minute. We'll see what we can get. Do any of those names, any of them constitute a marquee signing? Do we have the money for that these days? I don't think we do, mate. I don't know.
Do we need a marquee signing, though, Lawrence? If we do the business properly and we recruit players and scout players properly, we don't really need a marquee signing. We've just sold a player for 26 million quid who went under the radar when we signed him because he wasn't marquee. Do we need a marquee signing?
perhaps it's not necessary, but if you spend 7 or 8 million on a player, you think that the chances he'll work out is probably better than if you spend $1 million on a player. We've got 8 Champions League games. Are we going to be prepared for those? Are we going to have the quality in the door? I said the team's looking good for Scotland just now, but I think we all want to see progress in Europe. We're expecting to bring in some quality. Brendan's been talking about it since he came back. I don't know what it is. It just must be hard for Celtic to spend money.
Well, the thing for me, Lawrence, is Brendan has been going on about it, and he pinpointed it again at the weekend, and he seemed to be in good spirits. Now, I don't know if it's just like after the madness and the chaos, sometimes you just, I don't know, you go into some kind of mindset where you're just thinking this isn't going to change. I don't know. Does it worry you, Ian, the fact that he actually pinpointed the fact that this has now happened in 3 different transfer windows? He's overseen 3 transfer windows. I think he's washed his hands with the first one. He seems to take ownership with the second one, where we're bringing in Ida and we bring in Kuhn. And in this one, of course, we've been very careful about how we do our business. But the deals are not being done quickly enough. I know that we're up against it at times when it comes to, a bigger league, a richer league, offering the same money often isn't good enough in relation to us offering that deal and us not getting the player. But again, for me, these are all excuses, Ian. We can take all that on board, but what are you offering in terms of a platform? Well, Matt O'Reilly's proof that you're offering a very good platform. What are you offering in terms of Champions League football? 8 games this season. So, if we know what the selling points are, surely those in the recruitment department, and we don't have a head of that department yet, which is one of the biggest issues, are able to sell this football club to aspiring footballers. The thing with Valle, I think, with regards to the loan to buy, I think what that might raise the question of is whether or not our first choice left back isn't currently available, and we're maybe going to sign another left back further down the line. But Ian, the frustrations spoken about by Brendan Rodgers, what does that do for you as a football fan, as a Celtic fan? Do you look at that and does that fill you with a bit of fear for the future? Because let's be honest, it was one of the main reasons he left the last time. I don't want to go through all the obvious names. We all know the players that Rodgers wanted in the door. It didn't happen. And you fast forward all these years later, and it's like Groundhog Day, and he's still talking about it. And he's maybe doing it a slightly different way, but he's not using the old terminado and all that, but he is still putting the message out there. And I'm thinking, right, we've got 4 names across the bottom of the screen. Brilliant if we bring them in. What if there aren't last-minute hitches? What if we don't get the guys that Brendan wants this week? I think that fills me with some worry and concern, Ian. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I think it kind of underlines the fact that Brendan Rodgers has been lied to, because when he first came in through the door, it was on the back of the buoyancy of Ange, and I don't think we quite understood that. Well, maybe a lot of us did, but the Ange, it was Ange's recruitment, and it was his knowledge of a player that kind of struck those little gems of gold, rather than us having a sort of streamlined process of going out and recruiting people. Because obviously, prior to that, it was a mess, and Neil Lennon had similar frustrations, and obviously Brendan had frustrations prior to that. So I think it just highlights the fact that he's not been completely sort of told the truth when he first came through the door.
Mm-hmm.
But just to sort of echo what Lawrence said as well, at the moment now, because we've left it so late, excuse me, teams know we've got money in the bank and they know we're desperate. It's a recipe for, and it's not good for us. We're going to pay through the nose for targets. It seems scattergun, and I think for me it says that we haven't got enough football people doing the grown-up stuff. It's we need more football. We talk about football intelligence on the park, which is exactly what we need, but we need football intelligence off the park as well. And that's obviously exemplified by having a strategy of going out and identifying people. Like I said in the last podcast, we've got a style of play. Brendan's got a clear style of play that's now bearing fruit after a season.
Yeah,
we can see that, and it's purring, and it's doing well. Obviously, sad that we've lost Matt O'Reilly, but because we've got his streamlined process of style of play working, it's easier to find a player to replace Matt O'Reilly than it would be if it was scattergun and we didn't have that kind of that identity. But we haven't got the identity to marry against that and match that behind the scenes. and that's where we have to get to, and that's what Brendan was echoing in his press conference. So it was music to my ears to hear that he understood it and he was echoing it. Obviously, it's a worry that it's existing, and that's the process. So we can hope. I haven't got the confidence that we're going to get all these players in. I think we're lowballing right at the last knock-ins, as we do, and I think a lot of times we get linked to players. I think it's just to make it this. It's this kind of whimpering attempt to appease the fans that we did try, but now we know their game. We know, we lowball. We lowball. We were lowballed by Atalanta from Matt O'Reilly, and we held steady, and then we were applauded for getting what we wanted. So you can't say that, then sort of reverse it and say if we do the same to other teams, and they refuse, that we get what we deserve, really. So I think we've got a lot to improve upon, and it's a worry until obviously the transfer window closes.
Yeah, we do, and again, this is another thing that when you talk about what we can improve on, often what happens is we get comments like, "Why are you being so negative?" That is not negative. Pinpointing issues at a football club that you support isn't negative. Being negative for the sake of it, finding fault where there is none, that's negativity. This is something that even the gaffer, even the first team manager is becoming frustrated about. He's calling the board out. He's calling the guys out who are actually paid a very good salary to do the job of getting these signings over the line, and they're not doing it quickly enough, and he's becoming frustrated. Now, I'm going to run through some of these. Here we go. Jay McKelvey, some of these comments. Are they lined up? All just seem to be inquired about. Well, let's run through them then. So what we've got here is Arnie Engels. Celtic have bid £6.5 million for him. I think that's going to be knocked back. They're looking for probably closer to between 8 and 10 million quid for their 20-year-old midfielder. The latest on Bogusz is that we have made a formal bid. No transfer fee mentioned at this stage, but we have made a bid for the player. And of course, we've got Trusty. The bid for Trusty has been made also, £5 million. Will that be accepted? I don't know. Will Mikey Johnson being used as a make weight, perhaps, because they are interested in the Celtic winger? And of course, Valle is going to be announced first, I think, of the four. That's already underway with a loan deal. Now, the frustrations that we're talking about, Liam, we feel it as football fans, and we constantly get these things like, football transfers aren't as simple as that. What do you know about recruitment? It's hard to sign players. We get a lot of things. It's the Euros. At the end of the day, you have an entire department who are employed to scout and recruit football players. There's 2 windows of a year, but their job continues for the 365 days of the year. And obviously, the opportunities arise within these 2 small periods and these 2 windows. You don't sit and wait for the windows to open. This is the thing. We don't wait. We can have these targets lined up. There's a headline. Just look on it on the YouTube channel. There's an Acsom headline. Are we waiting for the Matt O'Reilly money to come in before we spend? And when I put it out there again, people are saying, no, we're cash rich. And as wee Paddy says, we've got hundreds of money. But it looks as though that's exactly what's happened, Liam. It's almost as if we've been waiting on O'Reilly's money coming in. And that frustrates me as well.
It's just so, we're supposed to be a Champions League level club. We're supposed to be the biggest club in Britain, one of the biggest clubs in the world. And yet we operate like a 2-bit public park team sometimes, honestly. It's just... Again, I don't want to be negative, but the fact is, negativity is something that's entirely down to your own perspective, right? What we're saying here are facts, right? Celtic have had the entire summer to get signings done. Largely, we haven't done it. It was the same last season. It was bit part players, or it was rushed last minute stuff. Clearly, Rodgers knew, probably from I would guess about March onwards, that he was wanting to keep Ida and Bernardo.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 should have been announced as soon as the transfer window opened, because clearly the manager wanted them, the players wanted to come. It should have been a done deal, but it dragged on for 2 or 3 months. And the thing is, while that was dragging on, it's detracting away from the negotiations we should be having with new players.
Yeah.
Because no matter how the board try and spin it, Bringing those two in, good players though they are, is not strengthening the squad. It's merely a continuation of last season. To date, the only area where I think we've strengthened, even it's debatable, is goalkeeper, because I think Kasper Schmeichel is marginally better than Joe Hart.
Yep.
And that's the only area. We've replaced one very good goalkeeper with, I think, an excellent goalkeeper. Apart from that, it's as you were last season, and we're just lucky that our supposed closest rivals have fallen even further away, which is going to take the... Because this is the thing I know. I mean, we had this conversation at this exact same time last season. We were all getting annoyed about the lack of signings. We said we're going to get scudded in Europe, and sure enough, that's what happened. But I said, if we beat Rangers on Sunday, it all goes away. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what will probably happen this weekend again.
We've been dragged in so many times, Liam. We talk about this almost on an annual basis, whereby we start in the pre-season talking about European aspirations. Once Europe is gone, obviously we talk about the here and now. You get dragged into a title fight, as we did last season, and all your focus is on just finishing ahead of Rangers. So what we criticise the board for, we become almost. You get dragged into it because obviously you want to see Celtic winning. Now, Lawrence, I've just received a wee message on the old X platform from JP Burton. Thanks for getting involved, JP. You can let Lawrence know that the Skylark is a pub, B&B, on Dartmoor. Been in it many a time when living and working in Plymouth. So there you go. Are you part of that chain?
No, maybe there's a number of Skylarks. I believe there's one in Camden as well. But, the guy in Edinburgh was asking about this particular one.
Yes, and there is a reason, obviously, for the naming convention of your particular boozer. When we look then, Lawrence, at where we are right now and the four guys that I've listed across the bottom of the screen, we may or may not sign all four of them, but they are looking as though they're guys that we've identified and are making efforts to bring them in. Even if we do this week, though, for me, none of them get in the starting 11 against Rangers. None of them.
Will they be up to speed? Brett, you want your players in and get a good pre-season with the team. Mm-hmm. Learn how we play.
Yeah.
Learn the style. Make sure their fitness is at the right standard that Brendan demands. You bring these guys in, how long will it take them to get fit, to get up to speed? Normally it's by the time we're out of Europe.
Well, it took Kuhn 6 months.
Yeah. So, listen, they've done a good job moving a lot of the players on. But bank balance is fairly healthy. We could have pushed it out earlier here and got the players in time. It's just ridiculous. I know Wonder Brendan's speaking out again. Because he spoke out continually about the need for quality. And it seems to be falling on deaf ears, doesn't it?
It does.
It's last minute again, and you're thinking, well, look what happened with Ida. Because it was last minute, we didn't get the option to buy. We ended up having to pay a lot of money for a boy that they would attain, 2.7 if he'd went to Italy.
And he looks a wee bit rusty because it's taken so long.
So we paid more than we should have done if we'd got the option to buy him, mate. It just seems they don't seem to learn from their mistakes. They just want to continue. Look, we've touched on Brendan left the first time, frustrations about players. Blenny left, frustrations about players. I think Martin left and frustration about the ambition of the board. Would it be surprised anyone if Brendan was, if he didn't get players in, he was to walk away?
I think it's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. It would seriously rock a boat that at this moment in time should be motoring. It should be motoring away into the distance, leaving everybody else in the slipstream. That's what we should be doing. So if something like that was to happen, it would actually be catastrophic, Lawrence. And the thing with this is, I think there would be far more sympathy this time round.
Yeah, well, for all the excuses, look, we get the Euros was there. We get it's hard to find players, but you know what? The department needs to look at themselves. You can have, excuses or success. You can't really have both. You can't keep going. It's hard to get a player to come to Celtic. Only going to guarantee them winning medals, 8 Champions League games, 60,000. It's not that hard. They need to do the deals quicker. If it was to walk, completely understandable. But you've got to wonder when Celtic review the issues that they have, and they've got to be saying, look, we've got a great player trading model, but how could we improve in that? Why aren't we getting players in that the manager wants, or of the right quality for the manager? If you look at last summer, was anyone in a success that came in?
Well, the only one I think that could be deemed a success is Bernardo, and obviously the way he's come in on the old try before you buy, it was a bit of a failsafe. I mean, the one thing for me is I still think some of the guys that came in the summer will leave before this transfer window shuts. I'm thinking Nawrocki, I'm thinking maybe even Palmer, possibly Yang. These guys might leave the building, and again, that sends a big message to say the way you were doing recruitment, even since I came back, is not good enough. And again, there might be a wild card. There might be something completely unexpected thrown in the mix. I seen a story yesterday, Ian, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to be right up your street. Odsonne Edouards on a return to Celtic. The nation seemed to be absolutely taken away in a frenzy with reunion rumours. And I thought that's a reunion rumour that Ian Conroy would get behind. Odsonne Edouards, surely not. Surely we couldn't afford his wages.
Well, I think if it's a loan, we'd probably got a better chance, so we could share the burden. But I wouldn't want it to be at the expense of losing Kyogo. I think we could carry 3 strikers and 3 top strikers, especially going at the Champions League. If you look at when it was sort of stated out a few years ago when Brendan Rodgers came up the first time that he was bringing a Premier League mentality. A Premier League mentality would be that you'd have a strong bench, the strongest bench you can have, and I think, and like you said that in a pod the other day, you don't have to have a massive squad, but as long as your bench is strong and you can rotate, you don't have to carry 700 players like Chelsea do, but I think there's certainly value in having that. So, unless he's happy to sort of come back, get his mojo back and play in the Champions League, and drop wages if it was a permanent move, because obviously there's logic in that it's a platform in the Champions League, so he's probably get a chance to move on again. So again, we'd be, I suppose, kind of a stepping stone, but we were last time. But we've got to use that to our advantage, I think. He's tried and tested. He's got an affinity for the club. So I'd be all over that, and I'd like to raise again, just in the vague hope that someone at the club watches this, is Shaqiri. You talked before about a marquee signing, Lawrence. I think even for one season in the Champions League, it could be like a Lubo-esque signing. He's got the credentials. He's class. He's a high level player. So I think it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a bad thing to have a punt on someone like him, just as a wild card.
A wild card, it might happen. You've also obviously got the means by which Brendan Rodgers brought in Kasper Schmeichel, where it's just like, right, here's a guy I've worked with previously. I'm going to see if he's up for coming up, and possibly that will happen. I don't know if it will happen with Edouard, but certainly there are other players, elite level players that he has worked with. Who knows what might happen? But I think that going into the Champions League this season underprepared is unacceptable. We've done it in the past. You look at the business we've done so far. We've brought in 2 goalkeepers now. I agree with Liam, and I think we've seen it again at the weekend when it comes to Schmeichel, particularly with the ball at his feet, transitioning to attack. He's done it again. He's very, very good at that, much better than what Joe Hart was. And I love Joe Hart. And then obviously the 2 loans, and you think to yourself, right, okay, we were somewhere down the line already with those deals. So when you're looking at where we are right now, I don't think it's acceptable. And I agree with most of the comments coming in, but let's bring some of the comments up. I'm going to bring this up from Paul, because we were chatting back and forward. Listen, I don't know if there's any truth in the Edouard rumours, but this happens to be mentioned every time his name comes up. The fact that he downed tools, in inverted commas. Now, the big thing that I mentioned, Lawrence, was that it's almost as if, right, every time his name's mentioned, someone follows it up with saying, oh, he downed tools. Ange Postecoglou. Let's have a wee chat about Ange, who is often hero worshipped in the Celtic support. Ange Postecoglou, to a degree, I think, checked out as a Celtic manager. I think we coasted to a treble. He was in discussions with Spurs. He was in discussions with future players for Spurs whilst the Celtic manager. And I don't think we actually got out of that rut until later on last season. It was like we were in a rut. At the end of the campaign, we beat Inverness Cali in the Scottish Cup final. And then we started the season off topsy-turvy under Rodgers. He finally starts getting a tune out of him. But I think that knocked us for 6, Ange Postecoglou.
Listen, he
He's
moved on.
worshipped. Nobody mocks him. No one criticises him.
He moved on Giacomakis and Juranovic for not being 100% committed in what, the December. Come March, it's fair to say he was less than 100% committed. You know, he's speaking with Spurs, he's speaking with players for them. In performance of the team dropped. You know, whether they'd heard that Ange was off or whether it was...
Alistair Johnson had.
Elsewhere.
Remember, he was on the podium talking about it. Who was he talking to? Rio Atati?
Yeah. Listen, when you see the interview he gave to the Scottish Football Writers Awards, you know, I've enjoyed my time in Scottish football.
Mm-hmm.
That was like 6 weeks before.
Past tense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, it's... Yeah, I suppose when any has changed jobs, there comes a time when you're speaking to another employer where you're still at your current one. But you're not actually doing the work for them, are you? You're not lining up players for them.
No. You would hope
so,
not.
You know, for me, it's out of order. Listen, Ange came, he'd done a great job for us, but yes, it's out of order that way. Doing work for Spurs when he's employed by Celtic. It's just not right. But, you know, we're a few years on from there, and I guess, you know, if Brendan was to start speaking to teams, would be blaming. Mate, I honestly can't believe it's another transfer window. We're absolutely loaded. I was struggling to get players in again.
Yeah, so somebody's not doing their job efficiently. It comes down to that. Someone's not doing their job efficiently.
Do you not think there's a massive amount of hubris amongst the backroom guys? You know, to think that they can go out and do the work that sort of recruitment specialists would do. You know, and that's their remit. You know, I think it's more by luck than judgment, really, that we've had these wins in the transfer market. Obviously, we've got a strategy of sort of buying 23 and under, with a sell-on value. We've had so many losses and so many misses, you know. So yeah, I think there's a healthy dose of hubris that is adding to that problem.
The big thing, obviously, last week, there's been quite a few plants. We've seen quite a few plants from brand new viewers coming in and defending the board and all that, Ian, right? And it's like, we've all seen the message of all the wins and all the successes since Peter Lawwell's been involved at Celtic. Right, I could list you just as many players that have came in, and we have not recouped any cash from them, and they've been absolutely useless. And
it's a deflection tactic.
It is a deflection, absolutely.
You know, we've got an issue with recruitment. We don't get the players in time for the manager.
Yep.
Oh, but look, we've done something good last year or the year before. Look, we're talking about getting players in time of the quality the manager wants for the start of the season. Just get quality players in for the start of the season. That's what we want you to do.
I know. And if you miss that deadline, then be it on your head because you've not done your job properly.
It was like Sean said in the post match of the day. You know, it's like a gambler. They only talk about their wins. They don't talk about the multitude of losses they've had. You know, so it's easy. Right. It's easy to point out the wins. You know, it's like LinkedIn. You know, these people that go on LinkedIn. You know, it's like, oh my god. But
what about the gaps in your CV, sir? No, but you're right. Greg Taylor, we're talking about left backs. We're talking about Valle coming in as a left back and pushing for that jersey. And the discussion came up yesterday in relation to the left back situation since Kieran Tierney left the football club. And even since Greg Taylor came in and the point was made, we've brought in Bolingoli. We've brought in Diego Laxalt. And we've brought in Alexandro Bernabe. Now, within those three players, because Laxalt cost us a loan fee of in the region of £2.5 million when he came from AC Milan. You've got £3.5 million for Bolingoli, £6 million. You've got 3.75. That's the best part. 9-10 million quid, Liam. So it's easy to say, oh, we've done really well with Frimpong, 300 grand turned into 11.5 million. But we have frittered away a lot of millions on dross. And a lot of that's down to poor recruitment, obviously.
To be honest, I think the whole kind of that business side of the club has still not recovered from the COVID season. I think getting Ange in after that debacle was a good way to get us winning again, and he had his contacts in Japan and elsewhere to bring in players that got the job done and got us back to winning ways. But clearly, when he went, all that infrastructure went with him.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous. But that's I said when Ange was in, because we all knew Ange's way of operating throughout his entire career has been he goes to clubs that are in trouble, he spends maybe 2 years there, builds them back up to where they should be, then he goes on to a bigger challenge, right? Melbourne to Yokohama to Celtic and now to Spurs, right? That's what he's done his entire managerial career. But the problem is that none of the good work he initiated on the recruitment side has been continued. You know, somebody asked in the comments earlier, apologies, I can't remember who you are, but hopefully you're still listening. They asked, why haven't we made any more signings in Japan? It's because, to my knowledge, we have had no scouting presence in Japan whatsoever since Ange left. That was all down. That wasn't down to Celtic's network of contacts. It wasn't down to international scouting. It was down to Ange and his connections to the City Group. That was how we were able to get players from clubs like Yokohama, like Kawasaki Frontale, and like Vissel Kobe, right? And just to touch on the Edouard thing for a wee second, while I'm in ranting mode here.
Yes, we love a good rant.
I just think that it's a wee bit disingenuous from some fans who are all going on about, he down tools. What did Adam Ida do in the last 2 or 3 weeks of his time at Norwich before we signed him?
I know, he missed his flight.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with Edouard, he always had this kind of lackadaisical look about him, just the way he kind of plodded about the pitch. But that was just, a lot of that was just the way he was, right? And the way he still is. He's one of those guys that can look lazy when he's not. It's just, he's got that kind of languid look about him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people take that the wrong way, right? It's like an extreme example, but do you remember years and years ago, Chadu Ree scored an own goal in a European game and he started laughing, right? Everyone's like, oh God, what's that clown all about laughing? He's just knocked us out of Europe. And I was like, people, if you know human psychology, that was obviously a nervous reaction because he didn't know where to put himself, right? It was obviously just a nervous tick the poor guy had at the time, right? And it's like that with Edouard. He's got that thing of kind of looking a bit lazy. And I think people have taken that, along with the fact he was working his ticket to get out of Celtic, as does every player. You know, as Matt O'Reilly admitted this week, he's been doing for the last couple of months.
Yep.
Right? The difference is, how do we perceive it, right? We perceived it as Edouard deserted us at a time when we needed him. However, in Matt O'Reilly's case, it's being framed, and rightly so, I think, it's being framed as a guy who's come here, done his work, earned his place, and now deserves to move up a level. And he has. Not in terms of the size of club, but at the level of football he's going to be playing week in, week out, he is going to be playing at a higher level, and that's the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, I was talking about it this morning, Liam, and basically what I was saying is if he becomes a regular in that team, without hitting the heights of the data and the goals and the assists that he's had at Celtic, if he becomes a regular in that team, he's instantly a £50 million footballer. Overnight, if he becomes a regular in the Brighton team at that level in that league. And that's just the way football works. And I think we've all accepted it a long time ago. I'm going to ask you this one question before I move on from you here, from Tim, who comes in. What's happened to Awata? Liam, he seems to be right out of the picture at the moment, doesn't he?
That's a puzzling one. It really is, because last season he was kind of the go-to whenever Callum McGregor was injured and or had to be played out of position. Yeah, I really don't know what's happened with that one, but he's completely faded out the picture. And the signing of Bernardo is maybe another sign that he is not getting a long-term shot at Celtic, unfortunately, and it's a shame. But I do think that, but Brendan Rodgers is one of those guys. He clearly has his favourites, and I think for whatever reason he's decided that no, Iwata's not it, and it's a shame because you and I both, Paul John, we both agree there's a cracking player there. If we could just learn how to use him properly.
Mm-hmm. And he's never really had that run. I think he came in for injuries last season, played the most football consecutively that he had done since he came to Celtic. And I thought to myself, maybe he will be in the gaffer's plans. But since this campaign's kicked off, it doesn't look likely. It would not surprise me if he was one of the players to go to the exit door. Unfortunately, I'm going to ask you before I go, Liam, odds and ends, if a deal can be struck, would you take him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ian? I know the answer to this one. Ian, you'd take him.
Definitely, 100%.
Absolutely. Lawrence, would you take him back?
Definitely, mate. Definitely. He becomes one of our top two strikers, doesn't he? Straight away. I think it pushes either down the ranks, but who's better, Eduardo or Kyogo you're looking at? And I know we're still running the risk of Kyogo leaving as well.
Are we though? Are we? Or is that the agency pushing that? That's a big thing. I would be asking.
We mentioned before about having the sort of the strong three strong strikers. If it was Miovski or whoever it might be, I think the players would back themselves. I think they would drive each other on. The likes of Ida, I think, could learn from Edouard. When was
the last time we had that, Ian? When was the last time we had that?
We never have it. We never have it. We're always continually in a recycle.
What we're talking, Hartson, Sutton, Larson. No comparing the players or the personnel, but the last time we had three strikers vying for two positions.
Yeah.
Of top quality. That was probably the last time, and that was 20 odd years ago. We have three strikers at the moment, says Brown Warrior, in Kyogo, Ida, and Maeda. I can see Liam. Liam, I know you were going to start nodding in agreement there. Derek Rourke, Rio Atati is smiling. All is right with the world. Oh, yes. Liam, is he going to step up in the absence of Matt? Are we going to have that breakout season from Rio Atati that he's been threatening since he came to the club?
Yes. Yes, we are. Absolutely.
He's got it. He's got it in the locker, 100%.
Right. Prediction now. Player of the year, Rio Atati.
Okay, Ian?
I think, because I think Matt O'Reilly was maybe kind of, in his ascendancy, he was maybe taking the sheen off Rio a little bit. Rio's first season, he came in and he seemed to be the man. Obviously, Kalmak is the man, and we'd fall apart if we didn't have him as the sort of the linchpin, that fulcrum in midfield. But I think now that Matt O'Reilly's gone, I think it's an opportunity now for him to sort of be an elder statesman, come in and just boss it. He's got the capability, he's got the credentials to do it. I think it's I think it will serve him well.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Lawrence? Who's going to be your main man? I've already put it out there, Liam. I can't go back. I've already said it would be Nicholas Kuhn, and that was before the Man City game, by the way. I'll keep referring to that. And I think he started off really well this season. Lawrence, who's going to be the main man for Celtic?
I would say Kalmak. He's our best player, and we rely so heavily on him. I think Ian touched it there. If Kalmak doesn't play well, Celtic don't play well.
You're right. You're right.
I think Callum's, without doubt, a man. Can Atati step up? Hopefully. He's definitely got the ability. He just needs to marry that with some consistency. He's got to look at Mark getting his move. I don't know what Rio's ambitions are, but if he wants to move on, I think Mark's shown him the way. Head down, produce week in, week out.
Yep, and you will hit the radars of these clubs down south. Brown Warrior said weeks ago that Celtic will start spending once the O'Reilly deal was signed. Feel your pain, Jonathan. Brown, Engels is the one we can't mess up. We must get him signed pronto. He looks like the real deal. Stephen Donnelly, is it not a disgrace that we are begging for just some of the 26 million to be spent when we already have millions to spend? Yeah, bizarre that you're ring fencing a transfer window, Stephen, and trying to make a profit in each transfer window. We should not be running the football club in that way, in my opinion. We have left, says My Ball. It's all too late. Terrible state of affairs. Sorry, Liam, were you going to chip in?
Just to add to that, we're going to end up overpaying whatever we pay for these guys if we do sign them, because everybody knows we've got an extra 26 million in the bank now.
Yep, Ida style.
That's exactly why I keep saying get the deals done before you sell the star player.
Exactly. Yeah, you're 100% right. And Ian Roy, welcome back to the show. When Matt O'Reilly was talking to the Brighton manager a few months ago, is that not called tapping up and against the rules? Maybe that's an old thing. We never hear about tapping up these days, do we? It seems to happen on a regular basis. I mean, is it a case of the agency speaking to the club beforehand? I don't know. Were the club facilitating it? Were we quite happy for it to happen so that we could get the 26 million quid plus? I'm not quite sure, because tapping up used to be big back in the day, and no one ever talks about it now. No one gets fined for it, that's for sure. Now, I'm going to bring this up, Celtic versus Rangers this weekend. We're going to have to speak about it, Lawrence, and we're going to have to talk about the officials. It's John Beaton who's going to be the referee. Andrew Dallas is the man in control of VAR, assisted by Graham Stewart, no idea. Daniel McFarlane, don't know. Jonathan Bell, no idea. Right. So Dallas and Beaton sounds like a bad cop show, Lawrence. What's your take on that? It's predictable.
We're banned from this game.
Yeah, well, there you go. We're going to have two in at least.
For all they've changed the head of referees, look at some of the decisions on VAR. We could have a penalty the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's 10 out. What would they need to do to give us a penalty? So I think we expected an overnight change from the referees. Probably not. The team started well. Ian's touched on it. You know, we're putting. We should take care of Rangers despite the referees, but you know, it certainly doesn't excuse the way the refereeing system's run in Scotland. It's just ridiculous. You know, using fans of one of the teams involved in the game.
It's so ridiculous that, and it's so normalised, Lawrence, that a lot of people don't even speak about it now. You know, it's so normalised.
Remember when Grant was on Go Radio? He was saying, you know, what did he say? Like 85% of the rest of the Rangers fans. When would it be a problem for SFA with 100? I don't know.
Another 15% percentage support Partick Thistle.
Yeah, it could be. But listen, I think we'll win comfortably. The way Brendan's got the team playing.
Okay. I'm going to ask for your start 11 then, because obviously there's a bit of a question mark in the front three. I would suggest that's been chopping and changing a wee bit. And a prediction for the score, Lawrence.
Well, it's Michael Taylor. You need to get him to sign a new contract, mate. Scales, Carter Vickers, Johnston. I think McGregor, Hattati, Bernardo, no shot there. I'd prefer Kuhn, Kyogo, and Maeda.
Okay. You say we're going to win. Do you think we'll win comfortably? What kind of score?
I think 3-0, mate.
Nice. I would be happy with that. Right. So Lawrence drops Ida to the bench. Kuhn comes back in as well, Ian. Is that how you would line up this weekend? Yeah. And I mean, are you as confident as Lawrence with the scoreline 3-0?
You never say never, you know. It's like, well, Beaton was the manager, Freudian slip there. Beaton was the referee in the 3-3 game, wasn't he? What was it when he gave a penalty to that?
That's right.
The Portuguese player.
That's right.
You know, he booked him for diving, then he overturned it.
Matondo, wasn't it?
No, it was
Matondo. He scores the third goal.
He scored the Walde at the end of it, but he gave the penalty to I forgot his name now. The guy who was on loan from Wolves. I mean, that's these margins here. You know, it's like, you know, he's a well-known Rangers fan. You know, and we've talked before about conscious or unconscious bias. That affected the game. You know, we could have lost the league based on that result. You know,
changed the dynamic of the game. Ian Brendan Rodgers spoke about it after the match, didn't he?
It did. But anyway, that aside, getting back to the question that you asked me about I agree with Lawrence. The lineup, I think that's the natural, strongest sort of starting lineup we've got at the moment, unless others come in that's going to change that. But I don't know whether they would get a start anyway in a fixture like that. You know, as a first game, I think it could go either one or two ways, couldn't it? You know, if they have a stinker, it could kill that. You know, it could be strangled at birth or career at Celtic, or they could get off to a flyer and be loved and adored and all that kind of stuff. So.
What do you make of throwing a player in, Ian? Because the one that springs to my mind is Johan Mjällby. Johan Mjällby made his debut in the 5-1 game. A lot of people say, Lubo he didn't. Lubo played 2 weeks before against Dundee. Right. Mjällby came in for that game, that 5-1 match, and he kind of bossed it. So I'm not sure. What do you think? It can work both ways for a player, can't it?
I think, again, with their policy of not signing older players, I think if it's an older, experienced player, absolutely. You know, if it likes of an Aaron Moy or somebody like that, you know, a Lubo, put them in because they've been around the block, they've got that experience, you know, especially if they've got big game experience. But with a younger player, I think it's more of a difficult task. So, I mean, that's just my opinion, you know. And we talked before about models and things like that. And Brighton, obviously, you know, they've just taken Matt O'Reilly, but they've got that similar principles in terms of recruitment to Celtic, but they also add in players that are over 30 to help balance it and help bring on the sort of the 23 and unders. So yeah, to pick, I don't know how old Mialby was when he made his debut for Celtic, if anyone knows, but I imagine he probably wasn't early 20s.
Right, I would mid to late 20s, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got that experience, you know. You're a bit more of a grown up, a bit less sort of, you know, a bit more streetwise. I think when you've got a few, you know, a bit more experience under your belt. So yeah, I wouldn't be against it if it was an older player.
Johan Mjällby, I'm now going to have a look to see what age he was. But he had already done quite a lot in terms of international football, scoring against England, you'll remember as well. Makes his debut for Celtic in 1998. He was 27 when he made his debut for Celtic. Yeah, so yeah, with that in mind, I would totally agree with it. Liam, the team that Lawrence named was the team that I named at the beginning of the season, except obviously O'Reilly was in there rather than Bernardo. And I do think that it's our strongest lineup. I mean, James Forrest, fantastic. I want to see him making his 500th appearance at the weekend, but I wouldn't start him. If Kuhn's fit, I wouldn't start him. Maeda must play down the left for obvious reasons because he terrorises him down the left. And Kyogo is a big game player. And I know that Ida scored a couple of goals against Rangers last season, but I just think he's your weapon. He's your weapon on the bench, should we require him. So I'm in full agreement with Lawrence in relation to the starting 11. How do you feel it will go?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on those lines as well. Run with that team, bring on Ida after about an hour. Hopefully, Kyogo and Maeda have stretched their defence and tired them out a bit. Then just bring Ida on to leather them and hopefully bag another couple of goals. The thing is, whoever we sign in the next few days, and hopefully it is these four, and maybe even some that we're not talking about at the moment, we don't need them to win on Sunday. That is the reality. We do not need any more players to beat this Rangers team. We simply don't. We are better than them in every department already. And, you know, we've beat them a few times recently. And, you know, apart from that time when they gubbed us 3 each at Ibrox, you know, who can forget that day?
Remember that loss, yeah.
Yeah.
3-each loss.
But I think we are due to go out and just give them an absolute pumping. It is long overdue. I'm going to say 5-1.
Oh,
You're invoking memories of Mialby's debut, which was on my birthday when I was 15, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I think, yes, it's time for another 5-1 game.
See that season, right? See, when obviously I've been looking back on it recently because of Lubo and Mjällby coming over for a few live events. And we did our business so late that season. We really did, you know, but we're bringing in players like Lubo. Obviously, Viduka came in and then went AWOL. We
was the manager not in late as well, though?
He was,
You know, it wasn't just a play. So I think getting the players in late was probably because we left it so late to get a manager.
Totally. I mean, imagine Dr. Joe had come in and had a full pre-season, Lawrence, to work with these guys. And I mean, we only lost the league by 6 points.
Margins signed though. Dr. Joe, you deny for play.
Great record. Yeah. He also signed Tony Warner and Big Scott Marshall. Gordon's brother.
He was a keeper for that 5-1 game, wasn't he?
He was. Aye, absolutely. Let's get him on.
Ended up playing for Aberdeen as well, didn't he?
He did. Yes. Robbie Bogusz, was he properly scouted? How good is the MLS? Was he properly scouted? Now, that's a good point, right? Because properly scouted for me is doing the old school scouting where you actually go and watch the player. You know, in terms of video analysis, it depends what videos you're sent, a la Raphael Scheidt. So was he properly scouted? We should have people that we can tap into, like Liam said before, in Japan, in America, who can go and look at games for us. Whether or not we're doing that, because it is old school and it still works, I'm not so sure. Brown Warrior, you're back in again. Celtic will always look to make a profit in every window. I think that's wrong. We shouldn't have to, but you're right. We try to. Mickey, Engels looks decent, okay, quite athletic, etc. Potentially a starter for us. We need a winger who can run with the ball to replace Jota, not a weight throws David Turnbull. We've got harsh on David Turnbull, who's warming the bench at Cardiff, and we've got Sanity Clause 2. Speaks volumes for your squad and manager that we lose O'Reilly and still overwhelming favourites for the title. Yeah, we are, and as Liam says, we will. Yeah. As I say, I think we will have enough at the weekend to win that game. I might give you my prediction in the pre-match. Adam and the Ants were better band than Oasis. Fran Vinegar of
shots
City.
Fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired indeed. But Liam, maybe the fella knows, maybe Fran knows that the first record I ever owned was Kings of the Wild Frontier by said Adam and the Ants. We're not going to have anybody slagging Adam and the Ants on Acsom, are we? Dear me, maybe the makeup and all that was a wee bit OTT.
Do you know,
but
wild tangent here, but I saw the guy from Adam and the Ants playing a guest role in an American TV show once, and he played this really creepy, like sort of predator, like child smuggler. Yeah. And it was he played it so well. He was so evil and so like nasty, and I thought, this guy's a really good actor. What's he wasting his time singing? Yeah.
Aye, what's his name? Stuart Goddard or something? Stuart Goddard. Aye. What was he in? Was it The Equalizer?
Aye, The Equalizer. That was it. Aye.
I remember watching that. Aye, he did have the creepy leather gloves. Listen, I've got a pile of old enemies down there, and he's on the front cover of one of them, right? And it begs me to ask you this question, guys, just before we wrap up today. Who is the only Celtic player or ex-Celtic player to have appeared on the cover of the NME?
Charlie Nicholas.
In one. Got it in one. Full spread. Charlie Nicholas. What, yeah. 1983? 1983, yeah. Arsenal?
83, yeah.
There he is. Yeah. If we can get Charlie on this as Acsom, I'll get him to sign that for you, Ian. I'll send it over to New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
It would be a belter. But we're talking about kind of like wild cards, and I keep hearing this, lads, and I want your view on Luke McCowan, right? Because for me, if I'm Tony Docherty, I'm selling Luke McCowan to Hibs so that when inevitably Tony Docherty becomes a manager of Hibs, he's still got the player, right? I don't think we should go for him. I think there's a reason that he's 26 and this is just his second season in the Scottish Premiership. Now, it's not snobbery, Lawrence. What I'm going to say is, right, okay, Dundee want £1 million for him. Fair enough. He's probably worth that. But there are players all over, and this is the thing, all over the place in different regions who we could pick up for. And one guy I was looking at just the other day, Ruben Colwell, right? He's 22. He's an attacking midfielder, plays for Cardiff. He's a Welsh international. Arsenal tried to buy him, or were interested in him in the pre-season. He's out of favour. You could probably pick him up for £2 million. Now, there's a player at 22 who could do the same kind of job as Luke McCowan, and I think that there's far more progress to be had from Ruben Colwell than someone who is going to be that 27-year-old before you know it. Lawrence, it's not snobbery. I just think it's like one of the ones where people keep saying, oh, but the homegrown rule, he'll come in, and we can maybe get rid of one of the other guys like Mikey Johnson. I'm not spending £1 million on a player just for that.
Johnson's gone. 2.5.
Is it confirmed?
By Anthony Joseph, no less, mate. So
oh, well, it's confirmed then.
Where's he gone?
Sheffield United.
Oh, they can give us the money back. We can give them the money back, rather. Right, so Mikey's away.
Yes, listen, I'll out McCowan. But is he any better than home? You know, he's not going to start, is he? Is he better than home? Is he just going to block a young player we've got in our books coming through? And is it the height of our ambition with north of 100 million in the bank?
But I'm trying to streamline this squad. If Luke McCowan comes to Celtic, how many is he going to get more games than David Turnbull? Is he going to be more productive than David Turnbull? I don't see it as a forward step, Lawrence. You know?
I don't think so. You know, he'll probably stop home for getting minutes, or you know, your player coming through.
No, you're right.
He'll probably stop him for getting minutes.
Yep.
I don't even think it's an ambitious enough move for us. You know,
no.
100 million in the bank. You get 8 Champions League games. You can sense the frustration for the manager. You know, at some point we need to have ambitions beyond Scotland.
I'm going to go back.
Some signings.
No, you're right, Lawrence. What was the name you gave pre-season free agent? What was the big name? And everybody says no chance.
Was it Croft? Robert Croft, I think it was.
Nah, it was a big name. Big name. Everybody's gone, behave yourself, Lawrence. Remember, there's a reason for this. It's not to have a dig. Ian, you've said Shaqiri. You've said Shaqiri, right?
But apparently he's got to Basel. Look at the comments. He's already said Basel, yeah.
Lawrence, have a think about it. Somebody will tell us in the live. Somebody will tell us in the live chat, right?
Yeah, was it Memphis Depay? Yeah.
There you go. There it was. Yeah. You didn't want to admit it there. You delayed that answer. Well, my card that I'm going to throw in, Ruben Colwell, 22 years of age. I think that's the type of player we should go for. Liam, we're talking here, obviously, in relation to who we're already been linked to, but Lawrence has broken the news that Mikey Johnston has gone. Finally, it's the right move for the player. It's the right move for Celtic. I don't think anyone can argue otherwise. What's your take on it?
Look, he'll go on to be a very successful player elsewhere, I'm sure. There's been several players in recent years like that who we know are good players, we know are very capable footballers when they find their level. Unfortunately, it's not at Celtic. I mean, Timo Pukki, look at him. He went to England, had a very successful time at Norwich.
Yeah.
Right? Barkas, by all accounts, did very well in Holland after leaving Celtic, despite being one of the worst goalkeepers I've seen in a long time at Celtic. Some players, for reasons mental, emotional, or just luck-based, it doesn't work out for them at Celtic, and Mikey Johnston is one of them. And wish the guy nothing but the best of luck. I'm sure he will go on to be very successful if it is indeed Sheffield United he's off to.
Yeah, I agree. I always wish players all the best when they go. Joseph McGonigal names Lennon Miller. We've spoken about Lennon Miller, Joseph, and I agree with you. I think he would be the kind of player in Scottish football that I would be interested in bringing in, even if you loan him back to Motherwell for a season. Bring him in. You're his parent club. You can develop him. Listen, 1,700 plus, and it's not going down. I'm pretty sure you would stay with us to talk transfers and talk Celtic for another hour. But we're going to head off for the rest of the day, and we'll be back tomorrow at 12:30. We're also going to be doing a Champions League show, a transfer deadline show, and then on Friday night, this is Acsom. The special guest is Bernard Ponsonby. How good's that going to be, guys? Didn't he appear, Lawrence, in an old Celtic view as the Celtic boy, you know, where they would just speak to somebody outside the ground, and it was Bernard Ponsonby.
Yeah, mate. No to drinking McCool's back in the day as well.
Yep.
In Nick's place. So, yeah.
Recently retired. Good Celtic man. I used to see him actually at the park a good few years ago when I was in the North Stand Upper. I used to see Bernard. So I'm looking forward to that. Gordon Strachan, as well as the Gallagher brothers, we are also getting the band back together. Gordon Strachan and John Hartson. That's going to be dynamite on the stage. Tickets are flying. We've got David McKendrick doing the live music. You've got a couple of months, but it might sell out because a lot of our gigs have been selling out recently. The ticket link is underneath the video. All that's left for me to say, Ian Conroy. You've got something.
Something relevant. Little bit of a marrying the two. So you Gordon Strachan and John Hartson. I met them together, and it was when Shaq supported Oasis in Glasgow years ago, and they were on the guest list.
Really?
And they came into the dressing room. Yeah.
Shaq.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
they
brilliant.
came to see Oasis, but Shaq supported. We were with Shaq.
There you go.
Shaq, we toured with Oasis.
Oh, I love it. So there you go.
Strachan and Hartson were there for the gig.
Yeah, brilliant, superb. What a week this has turned out to be. Mikey Johnston's gone. Oasis have reformed, and oh wow, we're going to beat Rangers 5-1 at the weekend if you believe Liam. This is turning out to be a great week for Celtic. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Ian Conroy, Liam Carrigan, and Lawrence Conley. Thanks for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.